Super Rugby 2020 season is not too far away. I thought we'll have a look at some of the transfers, players going out, players coming in for the 2020 season, and get a feeling for which teams are doing better than others. So I'm going to rank them conference by conference, which team's doing the best from 1 to 5. To be fair, there's a fair few squads who have brought in a lot of young guys who I do not know very well. So it may well be that I give them a low ranking for not bringing in some big gun. But in the past, it's often been seen that when you bring through your young talent, that actually has more of an impact than bringing in some star player who has to suddenly relearn how to play because your team plays a different system or something like that. So it's kind of at face value, but we'll see how this goes. And it definitely doesn't mean this is how I think the conferences are going to line up, because even if I put the Crusaders not at number 1 for transfers, that wouldn't make them not the strongest team in the New Zealand Conference, just on paper. So we'll see how things go. I'll start with the Aussies. The number 1 team I've put in terms of the transfers, and I've just dropped the magnet, is the Reds. They haven't brought in a whole lot of guys, but they've brought in a fair few young guys, and I've kind of given Brad Thorne the benefit of the doubt that guy, his thing is bringing through young guys. And it seems to be working, but it's definitely a long-term project more than a short one. But by third season, hopefully we're starting to see some pay from him. And in terms of big names, James O'Connor, Henry Spate, and Spate's, he's getting on, but I still think he can add value, especially at Super Rugby level. He's kind of on and off, depending on how he goes with his form. Players out, there's not an exhaustive list for any of the teams, but just some of the bigger names going: Naivalu, Paiawa, Higginbotham, Caleb Timu. I think of those guys, Caleb Timu is probably the biggest loss because he was still, coming through into rugby union. Paiawa maybe as well, but I back the Reds to kind of do a job. For the New Zealand Conference, there's only one team I'm going to put at the top in terms of transfers. It's the Blues. Come on, man. They've got in Bowden Barrett, they got in Joe Marchant, England International, and they brought in Finlay Christie. They are losing Ma'anonu, Sonny Bill Williams, so that's the midfield. But remember, Sonny Bill was injured for a lot of the Blues season last year, and both those guys are pretty old. So I think Marchant's like 23. It's good to have a bit of youth in there as well. Kind of take it with a grain of salt, though, because Bowden's only going to play like half the season because he's having a sabbatical for a bit. They're losing Malani Nanai as well, and he kind of had his best season for the Blues thus far, so that is quite a disappointing one. But still, I am putting them at number 1. And for the South African teams, number 1, I'm going to go with the Sharks. They've certainly lost a fair few players, but so have all the South African teams. But they have brought in Oxenche from the Cheetahs, and he is a class player. Sikumbuza Noche from the Stormers, Madosh Tambwe from the Lions. I think all very, very good acquisitions. Players out, they're losing all the Dupree brothers, but I think we saw that Kieran Bosch perhaps did a bit better than Robert in the 10 jersey last season. I can't remember if it was which Dupree loose forward it was, but one of them was injured for most of the last season, so disappointing. They lost Oosthuizen. They losing Andreas Esterhuizen, Reno Smith, Ruan Botha, Akavanda Murva, and the Beast. So they're losing a lot of players. I don't think Connie Oosthuizen was as good. Hazen was as good as he was before that kind of long-term injury layoff. So kind of temper that a bit. Ruan Botha, good player, gives away too many penalties. Andre Esterhuizen, it's going to be missing him to see him with Lucanio Arm, but anyway, that it is what it is. Next, for the Aussie Conference, I've gone with the Brumbies for second. Although it's tough because they are losing Rory Arnold, Christian Liliafano, Henry Spate, Chance Penny, David Pocock. But remember, Pocock again was a bit of a non-factor in the team last season with all his injuries. Liliafano again is at the stage of career where it's probably time to move on. Rory Arnold definitely had a few good years left in him, but again, he's not like a guy at 23 leaving. They're bringing in Caden Neville, who'll be good because they're losing Carter as well. So they need a lock, and Caden Neville is that. They're getting in Solomon Akata, who is more of a league man, but we'll see how he goes. Will Miller and others. They are stable with the coaching situation, so I'm keen to see how they go. They're losing Wharenui Hawera as well, I think, so I'm not sure who's going to play 10. That will be an interesting watch. New Zealand Conference number 2, I'm going the Chiefs. Mainly for the Gatlin factor. Come on, man. Also, Aaron Cruden's coming in. So, 2 pretty big names. They're losing the likes of Talani Siu, Brody Retallick, Ata Moakiola, Marty McKenzie, but Damien McKenzie's going to be fit, so he's going to be a big factor. Chiefs under Gatland, hopefully, will be in a good place. For South African Conference, I've gone for the non-South African team in the Waratahs. They're bringing in a bunch of guys who I don't really know. Lucas Mensah I've seen play. The other guys I'm not quite that sure of, so I'll take any insights from you guys as to which players to look out for. They are losing some players though. Garcia Bota, Lavanini, Matera, Landajo, Mojano. They're losing a lot of talent, but the core of the team remains the same. The coach is still there, so hopeful that the Hawares can kind of kick on. Next Aussie team, the Rebels. The Rebels are also losing a few players. Adam Coleman, Will Guinea, Quade Cooper. That 9-10 combo is going to be one they missed because there was a lot of tries set up by those 2 boys. They're getting in guys like Michael Wells, who I think is a bit underrated, but perhaps I overrate him, loose forward. James Tuttle, who's coming from the Reds. And that was a weird one because I think in Brad Thorne's first season, he was doing really well for the Reds. He kicks goals as well. Halfback, and then suddenly he signed a contract extension, and then he was virtually never seen again. They didn't play him. I don't know what happened between him and Brad Thorne, but they must have fell out because he never got any game time. So yeah, that was a bit disappointing, but hopefully he does get some game time with the Rebels, and they've also signed Harry Potter, who I believe is a winger. Hopefully he's got some magic feet. Ha ha ha. Yeah, Harry Potter. Magic. That guy must be one hard dude, because to grow up with a name like Harry Potter, I think he was born, I checked it out, I think he was born the same year the first Harry Potter book came out, so he must be tough as nails in terms of his mental fortitude. He would have given a lot of crap at school, so we'll see. Next one, the Crusaders, I've put as the third one. Now this is probably a bit of a, I do need to change that logo by the way, optimistic one, because again, I didn't watch a whole lot of the Mitre 10 Cup this year because the World Cup was on, but pretty much every guy they've got in is from Canterbury, Tasman or North Harbour in terms of Mitre 10 Cup players. But that's always the way the Crusaders do it. They bring in young guys and just turn them to gold, so I'm backing them to do the same. They're losing a lot of guys. Owen Franks, Ben Fennell, Sam Whitelock, Jordan Taufua, Matt Todd, Kieran Reid, Mitch Hunt, Ryan Crotty. Hold on a second. Right, my son wanted to know where his Lego was at. I found most of it. What was I saying? Crusaders, most of those guys they're losing, Franks, Todd, Reid, Crotty, these guys are all kind of senior guys, so it's kind of about time those guys move on and let some young guys take their place, and I'm sure the Crusaders will find apt replacements. Mitch Hunt was always kind of playing second fiddle to Mo'unga. I kind of don't blame him for wanting a change of scenery. But yeah, I'm sure the Crusaders are going to turn some guys to gold. Next, for South African teams, are going to go Stormers. Stormers, they got rid of Robbie Fleck, so John Dobson's coming in. Several guys from Western Province. Again, kind of like the Crusaders, you'll have to give me some insights and the Jaguares as to how these guys might go. They are losing Eben Etzebeth, Sikambuza Noche, Damon Delende, Craig Berry, SPM Marie, Voluen, and others. But they're retaining a good core of their squad, like Peter Steph, Dutoy, Sia Kolisi, guys like that. So they kind of may have done well in terms of the guys they kept rather than the guys they signed. So we will see how the Stormers go under a new coach. Next Aussie team, I'm going the Waratahs. Man, I have to move these numbers up. The Waratahs, they're getting a new coach as well, because Daryl Gibson left, so Rob Penny's come in. He's brought in Tetra Faulkner from the Rebels. I'm not that sure about that because I think he struggled a wee bit at scrum time for the Rebels. Robbie Abel, who's played pretty decent for Auckland here in the Mitre 10 Cup at times. They're losing Curtis Rona, Bernard Foley, Nick Phipps, Will Miller, Tatafu Polota now, Tolu Latu, Sikopi Kepu. Again, a fair few of those guys are kind of senior guys. Foley, about time he moves on. Likewise, Kepu and Polota now. Latu's a bit of a disappointing one, but again, Phipps, probably needs to make a move. So we'll see how they go with guys they can bring in, and hopefully the new coaching system settles them down. But I have got them fourth. For New Zealand teams, I have gone with the Canes as my fourth one. They've got a new coach as well. That's only just been announced officially today. Jason Holland's taken over from John Plumtree, who's going to the All Blacks as forwards coach. They're getting in Tyrell Lomax, who's a very good prop. Jamie Booth, Cobus van Wyk, Scott Scrafton. Scott Scrafton's not exactly one to write home about, but they do need some tall timber. They're losing Tumanga Allen, Toby Smith, Chris Eve, Sam Losey, Bowden Barrett, Finlay Christie, Matt Proctor, Niki Milner-Skudder, who didn't really have much of an impact with his injuries. Salisi Rouse's going to 7, so there's a bunch of guys there losing, plus Adi Savi is injured. On paper, that looks like a bit of a blow for the Canes, but again, we'll see how much of those young players can be kind of converted into the stars of Super Rugby's future. For South African teams, I have gone with the Lions as my fourth team. The Lions, they're getting in Yanni Duplessis, which will be interesting to see him back. Andre Warner, Dan Creel from the Stormers, Jumbo Lingo, but they are losing a fair few guys. Malcolm Marks, it's only a short-term thing, but I don't think he'll be back in time for the end of Super Rugby. It's kind of cutting it pretty close. Stefan Levis is gone, Lorenzo Erasmus, Quokka Smith, Nick Groom, Lionel Mapu, Harold Forster, Ruan Combrink, Madosh Tambwe, Sylvia Mahuza, and the coach Twister Brain. So it is big-time changes for the Lions. They've been bleeding players kind of slowly but surely for a few years. With the likes of Mostert going overseas, Faf de Klerk went overseas, and others, man. So, yeah, it's slowly started to add up, and we'll see if this is kind of a tipping point because they didn't make it to the top of the South African Conference last year. So, yeah, one to watch. Lastly, for the Australian teams, I have put the Sunwolves because there's not much of a team left. Kind of not a big surprise in terms of change of personnel with it being their last season. Ben Teo signed up, JJ Engelbrecht, Garth April, Mitch Jacobson, many, many more other players as well. Their former assistant, Naoya Okubo, who was the former assistant coach, has taken over as coach with the absence of Jamie Joseph and Tony Brown. Who's gone out? Pretty much the whole team. I think it's Jabba Brigvadza, the hooker, and Tom Rowe. That's it. I think it's entirely a new squad. Maybe it's an improvement with the likes of Ben Teo coming along, but yeah. See how quickly those guys can be embedded. For the New Zealand teams, I've gone with the Highlanders. Their out list is pretty lengthy. They've brought in Mitch Hunt. They've already got Josh Ioane, so he may be back up again, even if it's a new place. Jesse Parete, who's a solid player, but gives away a ton of penalties, silly penalties sometimes. Jonah Nadeke and Nani Punivai are good players, Mitre 10 Cup. But the list out, Waisaki Naholo, Tavita Lee, who's not quite stepped up when he left the Blues to go to the Highlanders. He never really hit his full stride. Ben Smith, the legend for the Highlanders, Richard Buckman, Matt Faddis, Marty Banks, Elliot Dixon, Liam Squire, Luke Whitelock, Tom Franklin, Jackson Himopo, Tyrell Lomax. That's a lot of players to leave. Is Aaron Major able to get the best out of his squad? He's lost a lot of talent, so yeah, we'll see. And lastly, I've put the Bulls down there. Last spot for South Africa. Again, there's a fair few players out. They brought in some senior players. Joandre Krier. Haven't seen him play in Super Rugby for a long time. Josh Strauss. Again, he's been in Europe for a long time. Mornay Stain. Mornay Stain's replaced Andre Pollard. Damn, that's it's a tough ask, but Mornay's the boot, so we'll see. The guys they've got out: Scott Brits retired, Luther Yaka, Jason Jenkins, Archias Neyman, Janis Kirsten, Hanro Liebenberg, Dwayne Vermeulen, Andre Pollard, Jesse Creel. The list goes on, but that is a ton of Springboks and fringe Springboks, so tough ask. But like I said, this is not an exhaustive list. You guys can jump online. Wikipedia's got a pretty good list of most of the players kind of coming and going. It gets updated pretty regularly. But yeah, that's just my take on things. Like I said, there's definitely some young players who I certainly haven't seen enough of to give a judgment call on whether they will make it. I'm kind of giving the Crusaders a bit of a benefit of the doubt because, like I said, there's a lot they do kind of turns to gold. These teams may end up doing really well. Maybe the Sunwolves will put together a really good squad. Maybe I should put them higher because last year's squad finished kind of at the bottom, so maybe clearing out the trash was a good idea. But yeah, there were some good players in that team as well, which is disappointing to see go. But yeah, I hope these teams do well. I think the Sharks underperformed last year, so hopefully changing coach and whatnot will do them good. The Blues with a proper 10 and Bowden Barrett, hopefully that'll do them good. The Reds, a couple of additions, some youth. Hopefully it'll do them good as well. James O'Connor seemed good when he came back for the Wallabies, so let's hope he can kind of add that to the teams. But yeah, cheers guys. Drop us a like if you're keen. If you haven't subscribed, think about doing that. Be nice. Yeah, I'll talk to you guys again soon. See you later.